Excel provides us with three different methods of referencing cells within our worksheet formulas. These methods are known as relative cell referencing, absolute cell referencing, and mixed cell referencing. Let's see examples of each of these methods. Imagine that on this simple worksheet, we want to add together the price of a menu item along with its associated amount of tax in order to determine the total price that should be charged for the item. Using the delicious nachos as an example, we could accomplish this task by first clicking on cell D4, where we want the total to appear, typing the equal sign in order to tell Excel that we want it to calculate the value that will be displayed in the cell, and then typing B4 plus C4 in order to tell Excel that we want it to add together the values contained in cells B4 and C4. After pressing the Enter key, Excel performs our requested calculation and displays the resulting total in cell D4. At this point, if we were to select cell D4 and use the fill handle to drag our calculation down to cells D5 and D6, we would see that Excel has correctly calculated the totals for the menu items appearing in rows 5 and 6 on our worksheet. The reason that these calculations are correct is that, by default, Excel uses what is known as relative cell referencing whenever we copy a formula from one cell to the next. Put another way, Excel is aware of the relative positions of the cells whose values we are manipulating, and it automatically updates cell references accordingly. Recall that in cell D4, we instructed Excel to add together the values of cells B4 and C4. If we moved to cell D5, we will see that Excel has automatically updated the cell references such that the value displayed in cell D5 is the result of adding together the values of cells B5 and C5. Excel has similarly updated the row numbers for the calculation in cell D6. Again, this behavior is known as relative cell referencing. As a brief aside, you may have also noticed that Excel automatically formatted our results using the accounting number format. We could easily change this if we wanted to by using the number format drop-down box. However, in this case, the accounting number format seems appropriate for our purposes. Although relative cell referencing can be very useful, there are often times when we do not want Excel to behave in this way. For example, imagine that instead of providing the specific amount of tax for each menu item, we instead wanted Excel to calculate the proper amount of tax for us, given a particular tax rate. In this case, let's say that our tax rate is 7.5%. I think I will also use the percent formatting style in order to make our tax rate look a bit better, and I will also increase the number of decimal places to 2. Next, let's delete all of the existing values in our tax column, since we want Excel to calculate these values for us based on the tax rate. Moving to cell C4, I can tell Excel to calculate the amount of tax for the delicious nachos by entering the formula equals B4 times B1, where cell B4 contains the price of the nachos, and cell B1 contains our desired tax rate. When I press the Enter key, we can see that Excel has correctly calculated the tax for the delicious nachos. But if I use the fill handle to drag that calculation down to cells C5 and C6, we can see that Excel has not calculated the correct results for these two cells. As you may have guessed, the reason for this is that Excel is using relative cell referencing. Therefore, instead of using the tax rate value in cell B1, Excel attempted to use the values in cells B2 and B3 when performing the tax calculations for cells C4 and C5. In order to fix this problem, we can use what is known as absolute cell referencing. When we use absolute cell referencing, we are explicitly instructing Excel not to update the row numbers or column letters in a cell reference when we copy a formula from one cell to the next. In our current example, we could tell Excel to use absolute cell referencing by clicking on cell C4 and then selecting the reference to the tax rate in cell B1 within the formula. By then pressing the F4 key once, we can see that Excel adds a $ in front of the column letter and the row number. A $ in front of the column letter tells Excel not to automatically update the column letter when we copy and paste the formula, while a $ in front of the row number tells Excel not to automatically update the row number when we copy and paste the formula. After implementing absolute cell referencing for our tax calculation formula, if we now copy the formula to cells C5 and C6, we will see that Excel now performs the calculations correctly, since it is multiplying the fixed tax rate by the price of the current menu item. Note also that if we now change the fixed tax rate, the amount of tax for each item and the associated total price of each item will be updated automatically. Now that we're familiar with relative and absolute cell referencing, we can take a look at mixed cell referencing. When we use mixed cell referencing, we are telling Excel to either hold the column letters constant but automatically update the row numbers when we copy and paste cells, or to hold the row numbers constant but automatically update the column letters when we copy and paste cells. As an example of this, imagine that we have a grid of 9 numbers arranged into 3 rows and 3 columns. I'll use the Borders drop-down box to draw a border around this grid of numbers. Next, I'll use the sum function to add together 2 neighboring cells. Before I press the Enter key, however, I'll select the reference cells and press the F4 key twice. As you can see, there is now a $ in front of the row number component of the cell reference, but not in front of the column letter component of the cell reference. We are therefore instructing Excel to automatically update column letters when our function is copied and pasted, but to hold the row numbers constant. As I drag the formula from one row to the next, you will see that the result of the calculation does not change because Excel is holding the row numbers constant. If, however, I drag a formula from one column to the next, you will see that the result of the calculation changes because Excel is automatically updating the column letters. This is one example of mixed cell referencing. In the other type of mixed cell referencing, Excel will hold the column letters constant, but will automatically update the row numbers. If, for example, I update the input range inside of the sum function, such that the $ appears in front of the column letter, but not the row number, we will see that the result of the calculation changes when we copy the function from one row to the next, but the results do not change when we copy the function from one column to the next. Again, this behavior is known as mixed cell referencing.